Blessings in Jesus' name. So in this video I just want to talk a little bit about what went on today in the referendum. People were asked on Women's Day to basically remove women from the Constitution. I mean, that's, when you actually consider what we were asked to do, it's the ultimate goof, isn't it? I mean, Mommy, here's a bouquet of flowers. We're removing you from the Constitution. Here's to women. Let's remove them. For gender equality. So for gender equality, remove women from the Constitution. That's the madness that's currently going on in this country. And is it any surprise that it's going on under a Freemason president who's telling us to pretend things are constitutional? And then they hold a referendum as though they were recognising the Constitution anyway, when they're not. For example, can I presume that this is a jug, Pyrex jug? No, I can't. Why? Because I know it is. Can I presume that something is constitutional? No. Why? Because I don't lack evidence. The only time you can presume something is in the absence of evidence. We don't lack evidence as to what the Constitution of Ireland is. It's written. So how can you presume something constitutional without abandoning reason and the actual definitions of the words used? And I'll explain that. Presumptively means, again, lacking evidence. The Constitution is the evidence of the law of the land. It's the written law, the written evidence. The Constitution is what we refer to know the law. So you can't presume something unevidenced in the evidence. Do you understand now? So presumptively constitutional is a contradiction in terms. And so if somebody obeys that term, they are effectively obeying an imposter dictator, Freemason, who is trying to get you to fight against your known law in a way that he's asking you to obey things that he, as custodian of the Constitution, hasn't bothered to officially run by the Supreme Court or test for the constitutionality of those bills before enacting them as legislature. That's his job. His fundamental and primary task, his primary function as president, is custodian of the Constitution. How can he be custodian of the Constitution if he's not testing legislatures he adds for their constitutionality? And at the same time, he's claiming that they have legislated for him not doing his job. What I mean by that is, they are pretending, because there was no referendum, they are now pretending that they don't have to check something for its constitutionality prior to enacting it in the legislature. That would render the duty of custodian obsolete. As custodian of the Constitution, it would not be acceptable that you wouldn't check the constitutionality of bills prior to enacting them in the legislature as a prerequisite condition. Because otherwise, as custodian of the Constitution, you are not giving the official stamp of approval to that which is passed through your office as being constitutional. So they're now saying that they don't have to do their jobs, but you have to pretend that they have. Basically, do whatever I tell you and pretend it's constitutional, that it doesn't offend your laws or rights. So they're not even recognising the Constitution of Ireland. They've effectively created a caveat, or alluded to creating a caveat. They've broken the law, but they've alluded to creating a caveat that says they don't have to obey the laws of Ireland. And can, in ignorance, even though that would be an impossibility, it's impossible for somebody trained in constitutional law, like the President, to not know whether something was constitutional or not. A mechanic can't switch off the knowledge he knows, or rather has, about a car when he's looking at the engine. He can't suddenly switch off that part of his brain and go, He's going to look at the engine, he's going to see the components. There's the carburetor, there's the air intake, there's the exhaust manifold underneath, there's the air filter over there, there's the spark plugs, the distributor cap, all of that. He's going to see the engine and know what it is, and whether it is an engine component. If you put an orange in there, he's going to know that's not part of the engine. Now, you wouldn't have to be a mechanic to know that. But you also don't have to be studied in constitutional law to know the Constitution of Ireland, or that something isn't constitutional. But we give the duty to somebody studied in constitutional law so that we can hold them accountable. But they're saying that they're not to be held accountable. And even if you break the law, you're held accountable. But they're claiming they're not. Guys, that's sedition. That's treason. That's now occurring in this land by the utilisation of the term presumptively constitutional. Then they want to tell us that somehow we reach gender equality, or closer to it, by removing women from the Constitution on Women's Day. I mean, you'd have to be asleep. Tell you lads, give them the flowers. They love the flowers. It makes their head go fuzzy. Maybe they won't realise that we're trying to kill them in the Constitution if we give them these flowers. They'll be so busy with all the bouquets of flowers they had, they won't realise we just killed them in the Constitution. That's what they're like. Oh, look over there. Oh. And then they fleece you. That's what they do. So, as a citizen of Ireland, I say to thee that we have currently impostors in government. They are Freemasons serving the devil's agenda. It has its roots in Rosicrucianism, but there is Rosicrucianism, but there are other sort of cabals and orders underneath the umbrella of Freemasonry, which is the ultimate facade that contains the sort of the house name where all of these orders are hidden in. Knights Templar, etc., so on and so forth. The Royal Arch and all of this stuff. So these are all satanic orders of wizards and demons working together to bring Satan's upside down land into effect through the organised organs of state, by disorganising them and waffling and saying things which are fork-tongued, because when the devil speaks, he speaks his native language, but he tries to hide his lie by A, using language that most people don't use on a daily basis, B, contradicting what is said in the one phrase, a contradiction in terms. Have you heard of that phrase, that saying? Presumptively constitutional is a contradiction in terms. It's like, let's reach gender equality by removing gender. It's mad. Let's be equally genderless. That's the asexual beast that Satan is trying to create. Neither male nor female, do as thou wilt. Anything goes. Except the image of God, right? And that's Satan. And he's a complete hypocrite. Because he hasn't got a leg to stand on. Because he's a snake in the grass. They don't have legs. So all they do is, because they're so low down in the grass, they've got a mouthful of blades, arrows by day, blades of grass, and they have to project their voice, blah, 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 blah. And that's the devil. That's all he's doing. He's going around lying in the environment. And he's operating in the children of disobedience, those who've joined those cabals that I've talked about, those orders of Freemasonry and such. And ultimately, what he's doing is he's operating in them. Jesus said Satan is the spirit operating in the children of disobedience. But he speaks in a way that's very clever. He speaks in a way, and he wraps you up in a bubble of enchantment. If you know about what I'm saying, all's the better. Wow, you know about that? Prestige, prestige. Do you see the point? So he charms you in a way that he leads you in to recognizing that what he has said has some value to it. By seducing you. Oh, really? You like what I said? You're intelligent. When he knows that's not intelligent to think that what he said has any value whatsoever. You're intelligent. You know what I mean? So it's like he put a hand around you. You're intelligent. Over your shoulder to everybody else who's watching. There's one of these born every minute. And that's the way that's what they're like. They don't care about you. And so they lie to you, lie to you, lie to you. And they'd fill you full of nonsense at any opportunity. And they're always looking for one. So presumptively constitutional is utter nonsense. That's like saying this is presumptively a Pyrex jug. No, it's not. Why? Because I have evidence. So we can't presume something constitutional. Why? Because we have evidence. What evidence? It's the Constitution. That is the evidence. So that's like saying the evidence is presumptively evidenceless. Or just simply, the evidence is evidenceless. The evidence can't be evidenceless. That's what presumptively constitutional says. Can I presume this is a Pyrex jug? Nope. Why? Because I know it is. It's written on there, look. Pyrex. Pyrex. And it's a jug. Because it has a handle on the spout. And you can pour the stuff out. So it's a jug. So I can't presume it is a jug. Pyrex jug. Because I know it is. So can I presume on the Constitution? Nope. No. Why? Because it's written down. So when they lead you to presume on the Constitution, they're saying, pretend that what we've said is lawful. On one hand, and on the other they're saying, the evidence is evidenceless. So they're actually telling you exactly what they're doing. But in a way that you might mistake it for lawful activity. They're telling you in so many words what they're doing is totally unlawful. And if you fail to see it, you bring it on yourself. Do you see the point? Because you've agreed with them. And these are just pirates in off the water, seeing who'll contract with them. They just dressed up as educated men. They're only pirates with accents and combed hair. You know what I mean? Like, take a pirate and put him in a suit. That's a Freemason. And then take a pirate, put him in a suit, give him an education from Trinity. He'll still maraud and pillage and rape. But now he'll do so with an education and an accent. You see the point? All they did was the pirates came inland and started pretending to be like the men of the land. But they were all the time trying to bring in maritime contract law instead of recognising the law of the land, because contracts can be anything, whereas the law is specific. So what they're trying to do is get you to contract while they pretend to uphold the law, ultimately superimposing the contract over the law, concealing it. Well, you did it. We didn't say you had to. But now they are saying you have to. And they're gone way too far. What they're now doing is telling you that under threat of imprisonment, you must pretend that something is constitutional, even though it's your duty to know it, such that there's no ambiguity. So they're encouraging the exact opposite of what their office is. As custodian of the Constitution, it's a prerequisite that you check every bill for its constitutionality before enacting it in the legislature. Now the President of Ireland, who's custodian of the Constitution, is claiming he doesn't have to do that anymore because they legislated for it. Well, who legislated for it when? These are crims, they're crooks on the run, except they've got names and seats and offices and they can't run anymore. And they're blatantly explaining that they're committing treason and sedition. Presumptively constitutional is sedition. Why? Because we have evidence. We can't presume what the Constitution is or whether something is or isn't constitutional. We can't do that, not lawfully. It's actually against the law. Ignorance is no excuse in law. So what they're now telling us to do breaks the laws of this land. Do you understand? Breaks the laws of this land. You see the point? So, President Michael D. Higgins, it is my opinion based on the laws of this land and my solemn belief, and I know, that he is committing sedition and treason, along with Siobhan Phelan of the High Court and the 3 Court of Appeal judges that made a ruling stating that we should consider something presumptively constitutional. That's treason. Are the 3 Court of Appeal judges saying that they're incapable of ascertaining as to whether something is lawful or not? What are they doing there then? And why, in ambiguity, are they telling people to pretend something is lawful if they don't know? And if they do know, why are they telling people to pretend? So whether they do or they don't know, and if they don't know, which is their claim, they shouldn't be telling people to obey it as lawful, especially when it was supposed to be tested in the High Court, and they're there to judicially review the process. So we're seeing treason, sedition on 3 levels in 3 sites. The High Court under Miss Justice Siobhan Phelan, the President's seat under Michael D. Higgins, and the names I don't know at this time, but I can get them. The 3 Court of Appeal judges who are supposed to judicially review what Miss Justice Siobhan Phelan refused to do when she was tasked with testing the constitutionality of sections 115 and 117 of the Criminal Justice Act 2006, which state that guards can prosecute in court, when we know for a fact that that is not the case. It goes against the laws of this land. They're not lawyers. They're not allowed either represent each other's evidence, which is what those sections lead them to do. So knowing that, Miss Justice Siobhan Phelan elected not to do her job on that day and broke the law. I believe committing treason, deliberately conspiring to commit treason. Just like the 3 Court of Appeal judges who told us to pretend that something is lawful. In other words, presumptively constitutional means pretend something is lawful. Or the evidence is evidenceless. Pretend it is lawful. So, treason, sedition, and they need to get it together now, big time. In Jesus' name, amen. Blessings.